One day I was sitting at a coffee
I'm
shop
watching
reading a book when the same prison guard that
animated
punched me in the
story.
chest years ago walked in. I didn't recognize her at first glance. People tend to change as the years go by, and she wasn't wearing her uniform. But when I heard her ordering a cup of coffee, I turned around and looked at her. I knew her by her voice. I still remember what she told me on my last day in prison. If you want to survive outside these walls, you have to first survive in here. Life outside isn't that different from life in here. Believe me when I say that a prisoner and a prison guard are two faces of the same coin. You might see officers as the good guys and prisoners as the bad guys, but let me tell you this. As a girl who was born and raised in prison, guards are normal people who live in the same neighborhood that prisoners come from. The only difference is they have better luck. I got up from where I was sitting and went to sit next to her at the bar. I started a conversation with her. She was my only hope left for getting answers to all the unanswered questions that I'd lived with for years. "Hi," I said in a faint voice. She stared at me for a few moments like she was trying to figure out where to place me. "Vera, is that you?" she asked in a surprised tone. I was so happy that she remembered me. I was very excited and felt that I wanted to shower her with questions. I could have talked to her for hours and hours, but the first question that I asked her turned her surprised face into a frowned one. I asked her how my mom was. Her answer shattered my heart into pieces. I wasn't expecting the answer that I got from her, especially as I'd thought all these years that my mom didn't want me and that she had had enough of me. But the reality was that my mom was living her days out like some kind of nightmare, missing me so much. The guard told me that she had been mourning our parting every single day since the day I'd left prison, but she was always saying I did it for her own good. If she'd wanted me to leave prison for my own good, then why had she refused to see me every time I went to visit her? It didn't make sense to me at all, but the guard's answers cleared up some stuff for me. The day that Zoya left wasn't just her last day in prison, it was also her last day outside. She died that day. My mom couldn't bear the sight of me waiting by the cell gate for Zoya to return every single day. I was too young to understand life and death, and my mom didn't want our parting to be that hard as well. She always knew that when I would turn 7, the prison management would look for a family that would take care of me. That was why she wanted me to be tough, to be able to make it outside alone. She wanted me to make sure that I didn't feel homesick for prison in any way. I went back home that day feeling indescribable sadness for my mom. I decided I would do everything in my power to see her again, but I never imagined that seeing her again would cost me my freedom. That same day I rushed back home to tell Mr. and Mrs. Thompson about what had happened, but I was surprised to find a strange man sitting with them. When Mr. Thompson saw me, he asked me to join them. "Vera, come and say hi to your dad," he said. After all these years? My dad? What was he doing there? What had they been speaking about? I understood that he'd come to get me. He kept on asking Mr. and Mrs. Thompson about the money that they received to take care of me, how they got paid, and how much money they gave me as a monthly allowance. He didn't ask a single question about me. It was so weird that I suspected for a second time that he might be a fraud, and when he finally finished his speech saying that he will return the next week to get me, I yelled in the face of everyone present, "He's a fraud! I don't have a dad! And if I had one, he would have come to see me a long time ago." Then Mrs. Thompson took me to my room and told me that I really was his daughter, and that he had my birth certificate which proved his claim. There was no way I could refuse to live with him, but the thought of moving in with him really frightened me. Imagine living with a stranger alone. It seriously terrified me. I said my goodbyes to Mr. and Mrs. Thompson a week later and promised to keep in touch with them. For the second time, I had been forced to leave my family against my will. Well, that man knew absolutely nothing about gentleness. He was foul-mouthed and never stopped swearing. He yelled senselessly at everything. One time he was getting out of his car to go into his house. I watched him through the window while he yelled and stomped, steam coming out of his ears. I was wondering what all the fuss was about until I went out to discover that he was fighting with a tiny mouse that had jumped up in front of him, but it did not stop at that. In addition to all of this, my own dad was using me. Yes, that's right, he was taking advantage of me. The only reason he had come looking for me was because of money. He didn't even think that what he was getting because of me was enough. He forced me to leave school, to look for a job at a bar so that he could take whatever money I made while he stayed home watching TV. Little by little, he started to become aggressive towards me. He never gave me anything to eat or drink and started to yell in my face for no particular reason. One time I told him that I wanted to see my mom. He refused, and that was the breaking point for me. He shut the windows and locked me in the house for more than a week. I could no longer stand living like that any longer. First, he forced me to leave the school that I loved more than anything in the world, and then that. A sweet woman like my mom was rotting in jail, while an evil, despicable person like my dad was free to do anything he pleased with no one to answer to. It was so unfair. It's sad to say that when I was in prison, I heard women speaking about the crimes that they were willing to commit when they got out of jail. I now understood that what they were speaking about was their own little plan to get back in. Maybe they understood that the world outside prison was far more dangerous than the one within. Never before could I have imagined that the day would come when I would be making a plan to commit a crime, but there I was, stuck in that house with that monster of a person. I had to do anything I could to get out of this house. I grabbed a chair and started to bash the windows of the house. Then I called the cops to turn myself in. The cops came and arrested me for vandalizing the house. It might be the weirdest case you've ever heard of, but at least it was enough to teach my dad a lesson that he would never forget, and put me back in prison in the process. After I went back to prison, the officer in charge wanted to make me go back home, but I begged him with all my heart not to send me back to the monster I'd been living with. I even cried hysterically so that he would let me stay in prison, but my tears weren't enough to convince him to let me stay. So I stood up and told him, "All right, but I hope you never forget that I didn't want anything in this world except to come back and live here in prison with my family I had known since I was born." He stood up and said, "All right then, fine." You might be thinking, was it really that simple? Would someone who wants to stay in prison be allowed to do so? The answer is definitely no. That officer only knew how much it meant to me to be able to go back and live with my mom. Plus, it was the only way my dad would lose legal custody over me. The moment when they were escorting me to my cell was even better than when I discovered the school library. I probably sound like a bit of a freak, right? When my mom saw me, she barely recognized me. I had grown a lot since the last time she'd seen me, but she was the same as before, as if the years that she lived without me by her had stopped the clock for her. When she saw me, she looked away, but when I called her Mom, her body suddenly trembled, and she lay down on the floor and broke into tears. I ran towards her and hugged her, and we stayed like that for 10 minutes. I broke the silence by saying, "I've come back to live with you." "But how?" she asked me. So I told her the whole story. And that's how I went back to living in prison. I won't say that it was better than my life outside, but at least it was easier than living with that monster that claimed to be my dad. My mom was both happy and worried at the same time. During the period that I stayed in prison, I taught the women in there what I had read and learned from books. I wanted to get the message across to them that life was not confined to good and evil, and that no one can tell you which side you belong to. Only you can decide for yourself to either be good or evil. I turned 18 in prison, which meant that I was free to live under no legal custody. But why would I go back to living outside when my life in prison was better than ever? I decided not to get out unless my mom was with me, but that was not what ended up happening. One day I was wandering around the prison yard when I came across a dignified old woman that I knew very well. She was standing in the middle of the yard alone. She was looking at the sky. That woman was put in prison before I was even born. I approached her and asked, "Are you okay?" She nodded without even looking at me. I asked her, "Why is the sky so amusing to you? What's so exciting about it?" She held my hand in hers and asked me to tell her what I was seeing when I looked at the sky. "Clouds," I answered, laughing. She hit me on the back of my head and asked me the same question again. That time I answered with more seriousness. "I see an eagle and a plane." She asked me, "What is on the plane?" So I answered, "People." She said, "That's right. Now, tell me, where is this plane taking the people on board?" I answered, "I don't know. Does it matter?" It was only then that she stopped looking at the sky and looked at me and said in a very deep and pained voice, "You don't understand the true significance of life outside prison, do you? That plane is taking those people somewhere. Life outside of these walls goes by. It moves. It continues. And all of us in here, we remain stuck. We remain still. All it takes for your life to turn upside down is to look at the sky." Within a few minutes, looking at the sky made me change all that I had ever desired in life. Suddenly, the prison that I'd struggled to get back into was no longer the right place for me. I decided to resume my education and to go back to prison only to teach women about what would make their life outside the walls better. And that was exactly what I did. That time I got out of prison once and for all, and I only returned to it to finish what I had started. I can now say with great confidence that prison made my life better, even when I wasn't a prisoner, and that I made the lives of many of those who were in prison better too, because I believed in the good that was in their hearts. Now I visit my mom in prison every week. I work and I continue my education to improve the situation my mom will find when she gets out of prison.
After the first battle, which resulted in Dream consumed by rage, he made a threat to spend hours and hours searching for my music discs. The discs, if you don't know, are my most prized possession on the Dream Team Minecraft server, and exactly what Dream needed to get his revenge. I thought he was joking at first, but holy crap, why does he spend this much time on Minecraft? Again, if you're enjoying this stuff, YouTube's causing people to unsubscribe, so please check if it's happened to you, because subscribing really helps out a lot. The war continued today, and I just had no idea that a Minecraft war could escalate this far. Haven't been to my base in 8 days. Remember, I know where the discs are, no one else does. Word on the street is Dream went pretty crazy. Oh my god. This scumbag! In what world do you go like, yes, I need to find the Minecraft discs. Timbo_ killed me, and that's bad for my brand. So they'll think I might all my Minecraft speedrunner versus Hunter videos are faked, which they are, by the way. That's not true. Dream! How dare you! How dare you! I am in Dream! Was this you that destroyed my entire base and renamed the site to Beach Boy Enterprise?
I didn't touch the sign. I didn't destroy your base either. It's just the dirt.
What?
I didn't touch your chicken coop. I didn't touch your actual...
Dream, you can't... You removed the entire floor of my base. I'm looking around. There is literally no floor anymore, Dream.
It's your fault.
How is it my fault, dude?
You hit the disc.
Yeah, because they're my discs.
You hit the disc, and I have taken them back. Okay,
where were they?
They were on the left side of your house, and they were up against the side of the hill. You left your Minecraft sounds on. walk around a little bit, and you walk over here, and you walk here, you go down, and then you jump down here, then you take a little bit of fall damage because you jump down here, and then you go here, and then you take dirt.
Formulated question. Have you ever redisciplined? Okay.
Until this week, few Americans had heard of
It's time for my all-time favorite SCP creatures. These are 10 of the most scariest, terrifying, and downright disturbing creatures of the Foundation. These creatures are currently in containment in secret locations away from civilization. If released, they would cause massive panic and destruction. These are the 10 most dangerous SCP creatures. SCP-017. Object Class, Keter, also known as the Shadow Person. SCP-017 is a humanoid figure, approximately 80 centimeters in height, anatomically similar to a small child. Has been successful, but the possibility has not been ruled out. 017 generally remains stationary and does nothing to act.
Guess let's head home, wake up morning for the weekend, and get changed tomorrow. Rocket, there you are. Guess let's head inside, wake up in the morning, and head out. Cool, it's 7 AM. I guess let's get changed now. Nice. Guess let's head out now. Bitch, please. Get the fuck up, bitch. Bitch, please. You ain't do shit to me. You ain't gonna do shit to me. Bitch, please. You ain't gonna do shit to me. Connect the music to the fucking car. It should be connected. There we are. Cool.
Why don't you go get some help? Take some meds. People will tell you, why don't you go get some help? Take some meds. Go see a counselor. You know, they can help you with your problems. Some people can never understand. It's a war inside your head. Lately I've been distant from the world in a quiet place. Feels like it might be wild differently I can't embrace. From all the hurt and all the pain, can you feel my rage? Growing up was bullied, they considered me a basket case. things have changed. The past is done and over with. Why I keep on dwelling on it? Why my thoughts so cancerous? Why my best friend have to die? God, can you please answer this? Why am I still agonizing on my last relationship? Maybe I'ma crumble, take a shot, I'm seeing double. You can hear my stomach rumble. Reason I can never settle. I've come up from the struggle. I can promise staying humble. I'm sorry for the trouble. Doctor saw my fucking tunnel. If my thoughts could really kill, best believe I would be dead. I am out here saving lives, and sometimes I forget. Cause my demons came to play and barely hanging by a thread. Maybe I should pull this trigger and just lay my mind to rest, yeah. Lost in the music, this is therapeutic. Barely hanging on, I don't know if I can do this. Will I rise, will I fall? Will I rise, will I fall? I don't know anymore. Look at my reflection, angel versus demon. Wish that I was dreaming. Will I rise, will I fall? Will I rise, will I fall? I don't know anymore. I know your life ain't glamorous, I can see it in your eyes. You can't even stand yourself, your past is haunting you. So you go to rhyme a little, toss and turning every night, debating if it even helps. You quit the partying, quit the drugs, quit the reefer. And now you think it's problem solved cause you change your people. You wake up miserable, it's clear you're feeding off for evil. Take my hand tonight and I can promise you'll be always peaceful. What about my family? I can't leave them in a disarray. Give it time and no move on, forget about you anyway. What about my fans and the impact I made on them? Find another source, do not worry, they will all amend. It's better if you go, do not act like you have any friends. Heaven don't exist, this is it, will you take my hand? Voices getting louder, you can't fight them, best to sign your will. Join me on the darker side, through the dreary depths of hell. Lost in the music, this is therapeutic. Barely hanging on, I don't know if I can do this. Will I rise, will I fall? Will I rise, will I fall? I don't know anymore. Look at my reflection, angel versus demon. Wish that I was dreaming. Will I rise, will I fall? Will I rise, will I fall? I don't know anymore. I feel like giving up though. Some things I can't explain though. I feel like giving up though. Some things I can't explain though. Will I rise, will I fall? I don't know anymore. Will I rise, will I fall? Will I rise, will I fall? I don't know anymore.
Next.
Little do you
Next.
like the fire that leads.
Next. Next.
Sorry, I ain't got no.
Next.
It's another one of them smoking songs, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. My pot is check it. We rolling trees and smoking. La 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 la. Another weed song from me. Burning more trees than cheeks, strong red and meth all rolled together in the same hell. We smoke blunts all day, you can't tell. Hell, I'm stomping in with my boots on, rolling to the diner with my half off coupon. Fuck. I've been burning since I was newborn, so high flying through space with Jimmy Neutron. That's how I do, man, rock the rhythm. You would think I had a motherfucking hot prescription, like the doctor's flipping. My grass stay fresh cut, sticky, icky, wet stuff, put it in the next dust. But last time I had a checkup, the doc said my brain was not fully developed. Fuck. but it just don't matter. I'ma have to roll the next blunt fatter. Just break it up and smoke that. Now twist it up and smoke that. Now light it up and smoke that. And now we're game for burning. Weed hit your chest, shit invest in Kevlar. Chillin' on Saturn, cruising in an XR. Every day I got the best bars and the best weed, same color as Reptar. Yes, we stay lighting up the purple. In my own entourage, smoking like turtle. Fuck all the commercials, they all straight lies. Acting like I'm gon' kill a motherfucker cause I'm high. The most I'm likely to do is open a fridge, chill on the couch and never end up leaving my crib. Shit, but that's just how I do. Stay high, seeing from a bird's eye view. I walk into a room and everybody starts sniffing. Like, oh my god, I can guarantee that's Christian. It's 9 in the morning, yo, what the fuck's with him? And I'm like, chill, I got a weed addiction. Like, just break it up and smoke that. Now twist it up and smoke that. Now light it up and smoke that. Ganja, every day we burn Dutchies and always stay around more trees than Fern Gully. I earn money, spend on weed and burn money. Other dice in my hand can't take my turn from me. I rip like a beast when I hit the beats, but it's just weed when they say I'm equipped with heat. Please, shit's leaving you in disbelief. I'm that monster at your door, bitch, trick or treat. The way I freestyle shit, that really baffles me. Cause I'm a pothead, call me Johnny Appleseed. I got a dub and a Dutch, let's roll and spark till we start to see shit like Joan of Arc. I know I'm smart, I know I'm nice. That's why y'all can't see me like a poltergeist. Smoking la la la, get that bowl of light. Grab the ball even tighter than I hold the mic. Like, just break it up and smoke that. Now twist it up and smoke that. Now light it up and smoke that. And then we'll keep on burning. Stay burning. Yeah, that's what it is, baby. Mr. Bono with that fofo, nigga. All my life when I up, he gon' freeze up. When it's cold, I'ma stick with that heat tuck. It's YBN, little nigga get your team up. Remember all the days I was broken out my cheese up. Take a L, bounce back on some new shit. Kick a dope, bounce out with them blue strips. Mac 10 and it came with a cool kid. Nigga try me on my life, I'ma use it. I'm a up top baby, give a fuck about a lifestyle. And I ain't sugarcoating shit, that's my lifestyle. Up the top, let it blow at a big crowd. Now they see me on the news and they like, wow. It's like, no, let me chill, I'm a smooth nigga. But I still bounce out with that tool, nigga. You know I keep that rocket in my tool, nigga. With YG, I be dipping with them real niggas. Real bad bitch and she sucking on my dick. And you really think I'm tripping if you think I eat the clip. Hey, little nigga, I'm the shit. What the fuck I look like trying to eat out a bitch? Hey, if my brother get the tripping, then I'm tripping too. If my nigga say he sliding, I'm sliding too. Hit a block, double back, we didn't hit a few. Bullets hot so they gon' melt them like a fucking kill, niggas. No, if I bet I'ma let that shit go. Bounce out with hoes. If a nigga won't smoke, he get smoked. Niggas, no. If I bet I'ma let that shit go. Bounce out with hoes. If a nigga won't smoke, he get smoked. If I ever go broke, I'ma get it out your bitch. If I ever go down, guaranteed I won't stitch this little dumb clips. I eat a little bitch. First off, free out of Corco land in this bitch. Shout out that nigga Mozzie, know I'm fucking with the gang. Shooter gang, bitch, dudes, JoJo, let that thing know that 4-time fizzy left a nigga with a red tan.
hollow tips shooting out the clip like he playtan. Big choppers, hella clips, knock a bitch down. Busy hella digging, he rock out with them blocks out. Niggas snitching, he got popped right when we found out. Round me in my wrist, cop a chain in this bitch. Knock a bitch nigga down when I'm dumping the clip. Stacking hella extras while a nigga up in that mix. And the turf never lacking, bitch, you know I keep a stick. Never ducking, no smoking, I put that on the dead homie. Nigga run up, catch a shot with your main homie. Free little bitch and that bitch go insane on me. Better duck your taco when we sliding in that rain. Hey, on my life, on my mama, I bust that. When I get paid, I bet I cop that Cadillac. You niggas broken, you still stop at Renaissance. And if I think you feeling iggy, I'ma push you back. Niggas, no, if I bet I'ma let that shit go. Bounce out with pause. If a nigga want smoke, he get smoke. Niggas, no, if I bet I'm
Next.
Yes, I am gonna say dumb as thug. That's because I came from the gutter, and I'm still here,
Yeah, boy.
Everybody go and put your
Hands up high, put your hands up high, put your hands up high. Gang signs up in the sky. Signs up in the sky.
Everybody go and put your
Hands up high, put your hands up high, put your hands up high. Gang signs up in the sky. Gang signs up in the sky.
Ease up. You better get it right. Higher than the fever that you get when you get a bite. My life's on the edge like the line on your forehead. Give a fuck or use a butter knob to get more bread. Time's up, time's rough, but I couldn't get enough. See what flashes your eyes, boy, when you're getting stuck. Who's what? Who's who? Who's there? Who's not? You will find out who is real when you get caught. Stay smart, have heart, be about your money. Keep it gutter, motherfucker, and keep it 100. We don't recognize real, fuck how you get new. If this 9 to 5 don't work, then it's back to drug deal. Gotta get the cheddar, gotta get the cheddar. Gotta get the cash, even if it's illegal. Knock on the door, got me staring at my people. They can try and find it, it's stashed up my cheeks though. Everybody go and put your hands up high, put your hands up high, put your hands up high. Gang signs up in the sky, gang signs up in the sky. Everybody go and put your hands up high, put your hands up high, put your hands up high. Gang signs up in the sky, gang signs up in the sky. Back up. Cause it gets worse. Every single writer gonna feel me by the next verse. Been cursed, thunder, boy had her.
Yeah, buddy.
Deep on Grove Street, welcome to the South Side. South Side on the track, that's by the track side. And I'm so high, but my traps are horror. Got a pack today, I'ma get another one tomorrow. Gave some stacks away just to let my partner borrow. I ain't stunting like my daddy, barely know my father. But does that make me a bastard? I keep my ears glued to the streets. You can call me alfalfa, call a little rascal. Grove Street criminal, playing about that money, I send them in. Money around here, grown trees, call it Timberland. Keep 100 in the lead, I with that 4-5, got you triple. 100 keep on Grove Street, welcome to the South Side. Niggas talking beef, then we swarming like a beehive. Money staying gangsta, big image,
So good. That's fuck you to why. Oh no. How come you didn't find you all because the cops found out, but they didn't find you. So we distract them and rush them, and yeah, you know you were here. Yeah, nice. I know, right?
When I walk through the door, they scream my goddamn name. Kevo Gotti. Yeah, that's Gotti in the building. Gotti in the building. I brought the Grove Street with me. They say I'm worth $1 million, but keep that on the low. Try to take something from it, nigga. I don't think so. I stunt hard on haters just to make them hate some more. I think I'm running out of paper. I need to order 100 more. 100 deep on Grove Street. Welcome to the south side. A nigga talking beef. Then we swarming like a beehive. Get money, staying gangsta, been in me since a beehive. Hit the trap and move some packs with 100 in these Levi's. 100 green flags, 100 double bags, 100 niggas stunning, 100 niggas mad. Everything 100, I keep everything 100. Everything 100, I keep everything 100. God, it's so authentic, that's 100%. Man, you niggas so fake, you can't be honest for shit. I'm taking over like 50